Welcome back to Open to Truth, a podcast all about exploring big ideas and discovering the truth together. My name's Tony.
I'm Clint.
And on this episode, I want to talk about the origins of language. Now, I am not a linguist or an anthropologist.
Nor am I.
No.
Yeah.
But I was thinking the other day, this is where it started for me, and I have these kinds of thoughts a lot, but I was thinking about, I must have been listening to a thick accent somewhere, like a thick Indian accent or a thick Scottish accent. And I was wondering how it can be that accents for a given language can differ so wildly, and yet we still say we're speaking the same language.
Now, I'm most familiar with English as a language.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
do you speak any other languages?
I do not.
No.
I can read some.
What? Oh, Greek. You can read Greek.
I can read a little bit of Greek, and if you really want to get nerdy, I don't know if you count formal logic, but
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I was wondering, it's going to sound simple.
yeah,
We have these mouth noises. We make noises with our mouths.
I think it's an important place to start.
Yeah, let's start there. So I'm moving my
You've
tongue.
made so many so far.
I'm blowing air through my meat pipe very quickly, slapping my tongue around against my teeth to form different sounds. Cool. Now, the sounds that I'm making to say this sentence are very different than the sounds that an Irishman would make to say the same exact sentence. And that's also very different than the sounds that an Indian person would make to say the same sentence. So in what sense, what is English is there a true English accent? What does true English sound like? Or are we all just approximating this thing and we're all close enough to this ideal called English that we can understand each other even though our mouth noises are very different?
I would say no. Yeah,
There's no true English accent?
I wouldn't say the word true. I think whatever you're maybe like trying to imagine there is just one of many accents. Maybe that one happens to have more practitioners.
Yes.
I don't know population wise.
Yes.
If there are more standard English.
Well,
but
and I think, is that because
some people have said that about the Midwest, for being honest.
that it's the true American accent?
Well, some people have joked it's accentless. But see that, but you think that's rubbish because you're coming from the outside.
Very thick accent.
And so we are, to you, the Midwest English is just as much an accent as Southern or.
So I think what we want to get to, this is why it went back to the origins of language. I'm throwing this claim out there. Language is just something that continually evolves. Like there was not a point where somebody sat down and went, I'm inventing English. Here it is.
No.
And here's how it sounds and here's all the words. It's something that would take a little bit of French and a little bit of, what is not Italian? Latin. A little bit of Latin. And we'll combine all of this stuff. And gradually over time, it's going to change. The way we use these words changes.
Yeah, I think absolutely.
It's completely fluid.
Now, yeah, and people come along later and give a classification system. I mean, think just for a moment, entertain like the evolutionary story, right? Life evolved and new forms are emerging. And then someone later came along and divvied up like this is a discrete thing. This is a different species. Like we brought categories to the natural world.
Yeah, it doesn't come categorized.
And called it something.
Yes.
So in the sense, like if you can't, it's tough. And I don't know if you can, but to divorce yourself from the meaning that you are hearing from just the mouth noises.
Yeah.
You can think of that as little events happening in the natural world that just like the biologist classification person, you are on the spot with your amazing processor classifying this as English and different concepts that you've been brought up to endorse.
Which is so fascinating.
Is that basically...
I love that.
Okay.
I love that story. So, okay.
What's the alternative? What else could it be? Or what were you tempted to think it might have been otherwise?
Well, I guess it makes sense when you put it that way. There isn't some official English, I guess it would be a dictionary. That's what a dictionary aims to do, right? Capture all the words in a language, but they're continually growing every year.
Or like, man, how about this? I don't know if this is relevant, but I'm pretty sure if I'm getting this right, there is a yardstick somewhere. I think it's on display in some museum in Europe.
That's exactly one
or
yard.
Maybe it's a meter. That they said, like, this is a meter.
Yeah.
And that someone just came along and said that.
Yep. And now it is.
And from there, we formed a base 10 system, the metric system.
But meters don't exist.
No.
Or they're abstract objects.
Yes.
And language is maybe the same thing. English is an abstract.
And I don't want to get like
too weird.
All into that. Like, what are abstract objects?
Well, okay. Can you help me with this then? Because I'm on board with the idea that language evolves over time. I think that's a fun way to think about it. I think it's probably the true way to think about it. But I'm stuck. It seems like there's a hard problem of language. So you've got two Neanderthal blokes, and they're mostly communicating in grunts, like my dogs do. It's like, I've got a grunt that says, I'm upset with you. I've got a grunt that says, look at this. I've got a grunt that says, play with me, whatever. Okay. Now, gradually over time, I can see we come to the river, and there is this thing, and I'm pointing at this thing called a river, and I make some mouth noise. Now, they probably didn't make the mouth noise river, but let's say that's the mouth noise they make. You go, oh, river, great. Anytime we make that noise, that's what we're referring to.
I think that's how it started. Yeah.
Cool. I'm on board with that. Now, how did we ever get from there to explaining concepts divorced of direct experience? So, for example, sadness. How did the Neanderthal man ever come to understand what is meant by the word sad? Or maybe even better than that, when did we as humans start to discuss the idea of thinking itself, thoughts, ideas, the abstract realm? So when I say the word triangle, you bring that to mind. You're familiar with that. You've experienced triangles. You know what they are.
Yeah.
When I say the word thinking, now how do you know what I mean?
Well, that's much tricky. It doesn't have it's not a very elegant concept like triangle. A three-angled figure.
Right.
Thinking, mental activity.
It's just a synonym, but how do I know what you mean by mental activity?
How do you know
I know what you mean. Mm-hmm. Let's just be clear.
Well, because you also possess the concept mental and the concept activity. Right? That's how you're understanding that? I mean, I think at one point maybe we just need to invite on a linguist. Or, like, man, there are, I don't know if this is kind of what you're getting at, but, like, there are, the one I'm most familiar with is, oh, shoot. Who are they? That translate the Bible in other countries. There's that whole organization.
Yeah.
I'm blanking on the name. That's so bad, but I should know that. In any case, they are going into unreached people groups outside of human civilization, basically, or like our modern ones.
Yeah.
And trying to translate this text into they don't even have a written language over there. It's just spoken oral tradition. So like at our church, there's this, I think from what I understand, they do not have written text, this village. And so they're first they're just trying to develop their language for them in writing.
Unreal.
And then see how that works to translate portions of the Bible, let's say.
Yeah.
So aren't they kind of doing the thing that you're wondering about? Like they're interacting with human beings, and let's call him Bob. Bob doesn't know the villager's language, but as he walks around and watches this villager woman do her chores and point to stuff and say things, he can then begin to map on his, like, we have the word cup, and and he'll see that person point to a cup and make a sound.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the word for that thing.
Cup. Yeah.
And so now, can you ever be certain that that villager woman is bringing to mind the same texture of concept to cup as you are?
No, probably not.
They're probably not.
Yeah.
But it's close enough.
Because
and that's why we get back to, like, maybe originally we were dancing around the idea that language is functional. That's there's not it's not defined by Merriam-Webster or anything like that. That's a helpful tool. You can find new words that other people will know what you mean by them, but it's a function-oriented definition of what language is.
Which I think then brings me to this topic of, like, coarse language, swearing. So when I grew up, there were some words I wasn't allowed to say. noises I was not allowed to make with my mouth.
Okay.
And,
Sure.
And I think it's not because the noises themselves are objectively obscene or something. They're arbitrary like any mouth noise I make.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that they convey is offensive.
Yeah, I guess so.
That's why it would be impolite or offensive.
I think you think that now. I don't know if that was what was the operating system of our upbringing. I mean, or at least some people I think would imbue like this word. That's a naughty word. Like in and of itself, it ought not be said.
What is that? I mean, that is how I thought about it when I was a kid.
Yeah, yeah.
But what is that?
You've transitioned from that to this other nuanced view of it's a stand-in for an emotive feeling.
Yeah. That is how I've come to think about it. I like the way you said that.
Okay.
I'm having some frustrating emotional experience that demands expression, and there's a word for it, and I'm going to swear. And so that's how I express that particular internal experience.
I think that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, there's this phrase, sometimes I forget who initially said it, but it goes, shit's not bad, it's just bad taste. Right?
Yeah.
The word itself, there's nothing inherent about the word, right? That makes it naughty or unrighteous or against the grain of the universe.
It might be it might be a word in some other language that's very good. Maybe it means birthday cake. You know?
Yeah.
So,
but it can be bad taste in that. Well, it's a play on words. Like you wouldn't want to taste it.
No, you
but
try not to.
It's impolite to say in some contexts.
So then, are we saying it? Oh yeah, this seems fine. A fine thing to say. It's not appropriate to express all of your internal experiences at all times in all contexts.
I think that's part of
socialization, broadly speaking.
Being parented well.
Do not be a completely open book. Filter your speech based on context.
Right.
But the idea of, banning a particular word.
Good.
That word is bad. Don't use that.
I'm glad you went there.
Okay. It seems like inevitably new words will be formed that will give expression to these difficult emotional experiences.
I think so.
You'll never get rid of the class swear words. There will always be some words that can convey the strongest annoyance possible.
Mm-hmm.
And those will be the ones that you shouldn't say in polite company because he really means it when he says it,
Yeah.
Is that why you like that I went there? Did you have something to add?
I think I don't know if you just said this or meant to say this, but I think one implication of that is when we go to ban a certain word or make sure that no one else says it, something else will replace it.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I hesitate to say it because it's now become taboo.
Sure.
But for the mentally handicapped community, which is now the more politically correct term to use,
I think so, yeah.
a lot of people, like if you go back and read medical textbooks and you might even find some today, the word retarded would be there. And now it's akin to a slur.
Right.
It's become, and I'm not necessarily against that. Like I'll let culture kind of evolve where it wants to go in a sense. I mean, I don't think it's a bit draconian to try to pull the strings of culture. And if they want to go in that direction, all of us together and say that the R word is a slur, then okay.
Then we'll need some new word.
But just know when you do that another one will take its place.
Yeah.
Because there will be people that want to, for better or worse, lampoon that category of people.
Right.
And deride them.
You're saying another slur will
emerge. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and it might even be mentally handicapped.
Right. That might become offensive to say in 20 years.
Yep.
Because some people will intend it to be offensive.
There will be a word that emerges to express a strong emotion about anything.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, just back to that point earlier, that language evolves. That's one of the consequences of that reality, that some words will emerge at the top of the list of this is the strongest emotion I can, because I have that emotion in me, or someone might. And so I need to let other people know about it sometimes, or want to at least.
Yeah.
And so what is that little utterance, that noise, that meat noise that's going to come out.
Yeah.
That other people will then, like, communication is kind of like think of it as throwing a ball.
Mm-hmm.
I have this ball. I'd like you to catch it. I have this meaning in my head that I'd like you to also think in your head.
Yeah.
And communication, I'm throwing that to you.
You encode it.
I need to throw it the right way, and then I need to make it so that you can actually catch it. I don't want to throw it over there if you're right here.
Yep.
So
and
swear words are one instance of doing that.
Yeah.
I feel this way. The only way I can get you to really understand how I'm feeling inside is to use the strong language.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think there's also times when, just to show how the meaning of a word can change based on context, or like the same swear word that might be very offensive at the dinner table might actually, around a bonfire with a close friend, might communicate this is a completely safe place, something like that. Actually communicates closeness and intimacy as opposed to just offense, even though the same meat noise is being made.
Yep.
Yeah, fascinating.
Contextually dependent as well.
Yep.
So one other facet of this that might be interesting is it could be tough to know. How can you know for sure that the ball was actually caught in that communication effort? So I did everything in my power. I saddled this ball up with all of the cultural context, the right situational context, this history of meaning in the English language. I put the right accent and spin on it, and I get a good spiral going.
Yep.
And for all the world, it looks like you caught it.
Yeah.
But how can I really know for sure that you understood all the things that I meant with that?
I don't think you can ever know.
So here's a... Can't ever know. Okay, why?
I just don't think you... Like, to your point about, the tribal man not seeing the cup the exact same way you see it. I think each of us had... What was the word Jared Bias used? Ula... For the way an organism
it's
sees
not
the world.
umlaut. That's a little...
It's something like that.
Accent mark, yeah.
Anyway, each organism has its own unique way of seeing the world. And so I
Umwelt,
that's it. Yep. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Clint. So I think when I catch the ball, I need to fit it into my Umwelt. And it's going to be a little different than than the exact ball that you threw.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes total sense to me. The concepts that I have probably have, like, if you think of a concept as a list of different properties that I ascribe to this thing. So let's say, what's a good example? Swimming.
Yep.
Okay, let's just take swimming. And when I think of swimming for a little bit longer than, let's say, 10 seconds, I'm reminded of times where I swam with my dad at this local
I had memories come to mind.
Pool in our condominium complex. And you don't share those at all in my concept of swimming. You thought of maybe the
time
ocean.
I failed that race.
Oh.
And I told Mum, I'm not going to win, Mum. I'm not going to win. And I didn't win. That's what I remember.
Okay, so that, about 10 seconds after the notion of swimming got brought up, that's a whole other aspect to your concept of swimming that is baked in a little bit.
Yeah.
So you could easily have talked to someone where you didn't end up sharing your personal anecdotes about swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And so did they really get what you meant when you said the word swimming? I don't know. Are you saying you can't ever know that? I just want to say that all of our concepts are necessarily different in their entirety, but there is a sufficient amount similar.
So that it's functional.
That's
totally
functional.
That's the case. And I think that's where it comes down to.
You've succeeded when it functions well.
But, yeah, right. It's funny, man. There are absolutely times when you can think you've said something very clearly and the other person hears something very different.
Yeah.
And it's not just, obviously they hear the same meat sounds, but they attach completely different meaning to it. So the sentence that they interpret is different than what you have said.
So that happens in vocal speech.
Yep.
And everyone knows this that's listening. This problem is compounded, I don't know how many times, by written text. That's why you can get so much anxiety from a text or an email. You're missing all of these different cues. Remember when I said I
Yep.
infused my communicative ball with all the situational context? You're missing all
None
of
of
that
that.
in written text.
Tone of voice, facial expressions, pacing, all
Like
of that.
even a punctuation mark. Like
Yeah.
they put a period at the end of that sentence.
Mate.
What are they, a monster?
Yeah.
Instead of an exclamation point
No
or something.
emojis in this text? What? Yeah,
That's
man.
amazing how, and that's an evolution. Emojis.
Yep.
They noticed that
Yep.
not every phone used to have an emoji
Now they're everywhere.
because it helps you try to communicate. Like
Helps me catch your ball.
Yep.
Yep. I need to know how is he feeling when he sent this.
Yeah, like a little
Yeah.
tongue sticking out, like I'm kind of being zany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen this happen like when I'm, I don't know, preaching a sermon or giving a message or something like that, some extended talk. The things that people will come and say, like, that they heard me say or that really stuck out to them, it's like, man, that's not what I was trying to say at all. Or that's not what I'm glad it was helpful. You've clearly heard whatever it is you wanted or needed to hear.
Yeah.
That's not what I was going for.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
And
That's
just
fascinating.
that we're on the first steps of this new evolution of widespread text reading and just that whole thing of emojis. I don't know how we've managed to throw the ball so well given those, because there's this whole other layer too of people are sarcastic with emojis,
I know, man.
like putting a little sad face, but really it's meant to be funny.
Dude, how do you wrap your head around sarcasm? What a tricky thing to learn if you don't have the radar for it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh darn.
How would you begin?
No.
Darn. Yeah.
And there's some sense in which, particularly for properties that are more qualitative in usage, like color, for instance, there's actually not a fantastic way to know that you are experience or using the same concept. So this is sometimes
Oh, yeah, man.
in philosophy of mind, it's the inverted qualia thought experiment. And so you can imagine a person who, whenever they saw bananas and school buses and the sun, they experienced something as blue. Like their experience is blue, even though the rest of us are yellow.
Yeah.
But they learned from us.
To call that yellow.
Yep. I actually have no idea right now if you think I'm sitting in a green or red chair.
Right.
I-
We both agree to call it red.
I hear you saying it's red. I don't know that you actually are seeing this red.
Is that how you feel about red?
Watermelons, fire hydrants, stop signs. You're like, yeah. But the whole time, you're feeling green.
And there's no descriptor really beyond the raw experience of color. I
Nope.
can't say it's bold. It's a bold color. Yeah, it's a bold color. Yeah, it's really red.
red.
Yeah.
So that can happen with colors. Really hard to know that that's not the case for literally everyone you're talking to, or maybe you're that person that's on an island.
Yep.
It's easy. Like I'm making fun of you, but maybe I'm that guy.
You're the weird one.
Man, it looks red.
You're the only one who sees it that way, man. Yeah.
That can happen with taste and all these other like qualitative properties. So I don't know if that. So, but
Yeah.
in a sense, it might take the wind out of your sails of like a fundamental bedrock thing that's happening during communication. But if you just shift over to a functional model, communication is functional by nature, then okay, fine. Yeah, it's even though you experience green, call it red, we get by.
can get along in the world. We
Yeah.
can record a podcast.
Right.
How do you feel about? Do you think we'll end up with one universal language? I'm kind of surprised that one hasn't sort of dominated the globe already. And you're like, English has.
It kind of feels like it. Yeah.
It does feel like that. Well, yeah, I guess I am surprised the amount of times I'm interacting with people from like India or something and they speak English. Seems like English as a second language
Yeah.
is the most prevalent second language, probably.
I think we're on our way.
Really?
Yeah, I mean think of how new like globalization is.
Yeah. Internet happened in the 90s. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it'll happen within 100 years, I bet.
That just about everyone will speak English. And you think it'll be English?
I think so, man.
It's pretty
I mean,
prevalent.
I think something really drastic would have to happen for someone else to come along another language to
I wonder
eclipse it.
How far back in English can we go before it starts to get pretty tough to understand and read?
I don't.
You don't know that off the top of your head?
Well, I can generalize, but I don't have for sure a date.
Please generalize.
I mean, you have like Old, Middle, and Late English. So Beowulf is the first English text.
Right,
And
okay.
Oh man, I'm gonna get slaughtered in comments maybe, but
Slaughter him.
I thought it was Beowulf was like in the 700s or 800s.
Okay.
AD.
I don't know. So.
And it's unintelligible. But it's categorized
English,
as Old English.
but it's just so primitive.
And then you get up into like Chauncey and the Canterbury Tales. That's Middle English, I think.
Yep.
And I think that's 1200s, 1100s.
Now, I'm making this up. I make all this stuff up. But I'm imagining then, with globalization, I'm imagining the development of that it will settle into some sort of homeostasis of English. Not that new words won't be added. Kids will always be coming up with some new thing to say. So new words will be added and whatnot. But do you think that from, let's say now to how many, was it 1200 years ago? It was 800 AD?
Yeah.
So in 1200 years from now, will today's English be unintelligible?
Wow. I don't know.
Or will it be... Because I have to imagine what made it so
The lack
volatile
of connectivity.
or change over time is, because everyone's so disconnected. As we become more connected, oh great, the Latins have a good word for this and the Greeks have a good word for this. Let's use that. And now we've got this weird amalgam language that's got some French, Latin, Spanish, whatever, that's all in there. That maybe this becomes the more unified language.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And we've been rocking with a pretty steady English for a lot of years.
Right.
I mean, I'm a layman. Again, we're not linguists, but like, will there come a time when it's unintelligible to use the word because it's, I don't know, drifted so far away from that?
What does that mean?
I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
Doesn't seem like it's gonna happen.
Weird. And then eventually, Elon Musk thinks we won't need words. Once we get the Neuralink in, we'll just communicate with our minds.
I don't know if that makes a ton of sense.
Then I'll be able to pass the ball directly. You won't have to catch it.
It's pure speculation. I have no idea if that's
very
possible.
Strange. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, Elon. Well, just a few thoughts on language. Hope that was interesting. This is the kind of thing I've been thinking about and we talk about while we're working out. Figured we'd bring you in on the conversation too. So if you've got any thoughts, any questions, anything we missed, feel free to write into the show, leave a comment on our YouTube channel, or you can reach us opentotruth.com, opentotruthpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Stay curious.